Hi there, my name is Lauren Ranzetti and I work at the Art Gallery of Ontario. I'm one of the adult instructors and today I'm going to show you how to paint a waterscape. Let's get started. I'm just going to draw out a little bit of where I want things to be. There's no hard and fast rules. Some people don't draw anything out, but I like to have a little bit of a guideline. And especially when it comes to where the darks are going to be in the situation. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do for that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to block in and I'm going to use a round Talcian brush. And I'm going to start with my lighter blues. And what I'm doing is just a really quick striation across. Monet did a lot of this sort of thing, and it would be called a rough scumble or a linear scumble, water scumble. And I'm making the paint not too thick. I don't want it to be too detailed in the background, but I do want to have lots of movement in the foreground. So I'm putting lots of pieces in there. Some areas are going to get covered up with spray right at the foot of the painting, so I don't have to worry about that too much. Normally with this kind of painting you would actually start with the extreme darks, but because this is a very quick sketch, I don't want the darks to take over. So I'm doing this a little bit backwards. I'm going to move into a different blue. It's using ultramarine and the cerulean and cobalt mix. There's not a lot of striation or variation on this side because it's based on a sunset photo that has quite a bit of light happening over here. So I'm going to put lots of little striations in here. I like to kind of connect them together. It makes for a better flow. It's not that it's necessarily the way it is in real life, but when you're painting, you can do whatever you want. Okay, so I'm just blocking in most of the blues. I'm going to go in now rinsing my brush because I don't want to have the blue and this light orange being too much in the brush. So I'm drying my brush off too in paper towel a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in with my orange, and I don't really want to get too much of it in the blue. So I'm kind of working around it, just filling in all the white spots. If I get a tertiary color, the orange and the blue together, that's okay. That muddy color's having a little bit of it's all right. It's a support color. You just don't want to have too much of it. So I am kind of referring to my reference point, but I am also ad-libbing it a little bit just for the sake of vibrancy and personal taste. So I've blocked in most of the background water. I want to get into this area in the front. And I want it to be married to the background. So I'm going to go directly in with pink and not necessarily rinse out my brush. So if the orange is in there, it's okay. And this water is spraying up onto rocks. We don't see the rocks, but we see the spray. And because it is a sunset, it's quite bright. I might go ahead and put a little bit of orange in there too, just to kind of marry it together. And then I'm going to go in with some lavender, which is a diazonine purple with a bunch of magenta and white. And I want it to be pretty fluffy and fuzzy and quick because the water is just shooting straight at me. That's a bit disparate from the rest of it. So I'm going to go in with a smaller brush now and I'm going to add some of that darker purple as a shadow color. I could go really dark blue, which I do have, and I will add a little bit of that, but it tends to take over really quickly, and I prefer purple over black. So this is a detail brush. This is like a number 4 talcum. It's very soft. It's good for lines. And it holds a lot of paint, so I can get lots of brush strokes in without working too hard. So I still have quite a bit of white showing, but I'm not going to worry about it too much because the ripple of the water would have a little bit of white. I'm going to go in with a tiny little bit of this orange to just kind of make some of this orange a little bit more three-dimensional. That's another fine-tuning thing. Having more than one value on top of each other of the same color is a good strategy to try and create dimension and depth in a piece. Okay, I'm going to go in with just a little bit of darker blue. I don't want to make it quite as dark as what I have here, so I'm going to mix it with this one. And mixing it with a color that already exists is a good idea because then it relates to what's already there. So it's important to kind of go from top to bottom when you're painting because you want to have this feeling distant. And in fact, I might just add a little bit less information up there. And adding just a few little darker bits. I want to be much darker down in here to just show it's close to me. And I'm going to take a totally different tool. You usually have them in the bathroom. It's a toothbrush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of that magenta, not too much paint, put it in the water and tap it a bunch of times. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create spray on top of this to just help give it that sense of water coming right at me. And I think I'm going to actually go with a little bit of the purple too, just to soften that blow of the bright in there. And so this is a pretty quick strategy for creating something that's got some dimension with different techniques in there. And I think just a couple more lights in there on top just to kind of paint's getting a bit muddy. That's one of the strategies you have to be really careful of, is you don't want it to be too muddy too quickly. So rinsing and drying your brush is always a good strategy. Letting things dry in between is ideal. And I would say that's a pretty good version of a quick waterscape.